folks, this is the other guy alongside Brownsville Gamer, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the National Championship of the CFT, the National Championship pre-show. I am the other guy alongside my broadcast partner, the one and only Brownsville Gamer.
And we're very happy to be with you because it's finally here. We started with 21 teams, and now we're down to the final 2. And before we get right into the game, we want to spend some time talking about how we got here and how we reached to these 2 final teams, talk about what we're dealing with, and ultimately give our predictions as to who will become the CFT National Champions. Now, it all starts with 21 teams. They all qualified in various ways. They made it as an at-large team, like Indiana, or they possibly made it through a conference play-in, like Fresno State, or you could have been a team that managed to make their way in with a one last chance opportunity in the runner-up cup. And we played 6 rounds of competition, and it landed to the final 8 teams. We did our playoffs, and from the final 8, here are the 2 remaining teams, the 2nd seed, or in this case, the 3rd seed, Fresno State, going up against the 2nd seeded Indiana. So let's talk about each of these teams, how they got here, and let's dive a bit deep with some of these things to think about. So let's first go with Fresno State, representing the Mountain West. They're the 3rd seeded team. They've won 5 games and lost only 1 match to BYU in the preliminary round, and won their quarterfinals against Ole Miss 24-12, and also defeated Ohio State in the semifinals 35-21. So that other guy, I guess my question to you, all things considered, what will it take for Fresno State to defeat a team like Indiana?
Well, I think the most important thing is that they got to establish dominance defensively. I think that's the number one thing that they got to focus on. You got to establish defense early. You got to put a stop to Fernando, or you got to put a stop to Hemby. I keep telling teams these things. It's the key. You have to establish defensive dominance. If you allow Hemby to run all over you, if you allow Fernando to run all over you and throw it in the air, you're going to have a long night. What makes Fresno State dangerous, you don't know how they're going to hit you. It could be a pick 6. It could be a scoop and score. It could be a Donaldson and Gillian 60-yard run. You know, you never know. And their defense, I mean, come on, Freeman, you know, he's been one of the key factors on their defensive line. Their offensive line is pretty good. I can't tell you how many times they can get to the quarterback.
Right.
I think that the Fresno State's most dangerous weapon is obviously, you know what I'm talking about, running back you. But don't sleep on Fresno State's defense. That's one of the reasons why they've been so dominant is their defense.
I mean, I feel you, but I feel like when you give up 36 points from the quarterfinals to the semifinals, that's something that I kind of question in terms of how good the defense is from Fresno State. I'm not too concerned about whether or not Fresno State can put points on the board. They've dominated solely on their running game throughout this entire tournament. In the past 2 playoff games, we've seen how just efficient they can play when it comes to the ground. But can they stay disciplined defensively so they're not giving up so many points? I think, for instance, the game against Ohio State, don't get me wrong, that is the biggest upset of the entire tournament. Fresno State upsetting pretty much a perennial favorite to face off against Indiana. But when you give up 21 points, even to a team like Ohio State, I think that Indiana is the type of team that's going to be very quick to capitalize on mistakes that are being made by the Fresno State defense. So you're saying what it takes for Fresno State to win is that they got to be able to contain Indiana on the offensive side of the house, playing defensively. But for the Fresno State offense, what happens if the running backs aren't playing up to par? We already saw this with the Ole Miss game, right? When we notice that Donaldson is missing or Gilliam is not playing to a high level.
Oh, that was the SMU game.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you think can make Fresno State overcome that?
I think you're looking at just one game because that's only happened one game. There's only been one game.
What if Indiana are able to shut them down?
Then they gotta change it. They gotta change it up. They might have to go through the air.
I mean, they haven't been successful in their passing game this entire tournament.
I wouldn't say all that because did you look at the Clemson game?
I mean, the Clemson game was how many games? Look, never mind. I'm making references to playoff games right now. The passing game for Fresno State has been non-existent. Right? So if for some reason they're able to switch it up, the problem is that Indiana arguably has the best pass defense in the entire tournament. So if you're going to try to have a passing game, you're picking a very difficult team to test their pass defense.
You have a point there. And I think this is the point where champions are made. And I think that Fresno State, I want to say if by the second quarter, the running game hasn't caught on yet.
I mean, if Ratcliffe gets in touch with, Warner, that's going to be a very big problem. Because one thing that I'm concerned about is if you are all thinking about Fresno State playing their passing game, you got to protect Warner. And I am curious to know how good is the offensive line in making sure that Warner has enough time to play in the pocket. Well, he's not that much of a scrambling quarterback.
True, but their line is good enough to get Donaldson and Gilliam those big runs?
Well, that's if, and again, it depends on how aggressive Indiana plays this. And if Indiana is going to be aggressively, really on, let's say, running blitz packages throughout the game, then how long can Donaldson or how long can Gilliam withstand that? I mean, if they're able to play zone, then there's going to be an opportunity for, Fresno State to try to capitalize on potential mismatches. And that's another thing, too. We're looking at two different teams that are just built differently. So I'm curious to know, how will Fresno State keep up with a really aggressive Indiana team?
I think the number one thing is, yes, rely on what got you here. What got Fresno State here primarily is the run game, running back you. I mean, we've seen on countless occasions when those two are on.
Yeah, but what happens when one-dimensional football goes wrong?
Well, I'm going to get to that. I'm just saying we've seen when they're on, they're damn near unstoppable. You can't stop them. But what I will say is the one thing that Indiana is good for is exposing one-trick ponies and exposing overhyped teams. And I think if Fresno State gets behind early, you know what? I got a perfect analogy. I don't think Fresno State's been punched in the mouth.
Well, I mean,
I think that's what it is. They had the little hiccup with SMU. They had the little hiccup with Clemson, but they never been really punching them out.
I don't know about that. I mean,
but that's what I mean.
BYU punched them in the mouth.
No, punch them in the mouth, meaning like you're in a situation where it can get ugly fast. You only lost by possession to BYU. You barely won SMU. I'm talking about Indiana punches people in the face, and they don't have a plan for it. We've seen that with Texas. We've seen that with Oregon. Everybody got a plan until you get punched in the mouth. And I think that we kept saying over and over, and I'm tired of people saying this, but everything was a test for Fresno State. Everybody said the Ole Miss game was a test. They passed. Everybody said Ohio State was the biggest test. They passed that. We're flying colors. This is, and I'm sorry to say this is it right here. Everything has got you to this moment right here. Everything has prepared you. Even the losses build you up.
Well, just
to where you are right now.
Just to be clear,
I'm talking about as a whole.
Yeah.
Everything has got you to this point right here. You use that embarrassing debut as a motivation to show this is what we were and this is who we are now. And what better way to prove that you belong here and prove that you're legit, to prove that this ain't no one-time thing than going head-to-head, toe-to-toe with probably the best team in the tournament.
And speaking of which, let's now transition to Indiana. Indiana is entering the national championship as the first-ranked team, first-ranked team in the tournament. I mean, they've had successful wins against some pretty great opponents. But I think the biggest win has to be in the playoffs as they went up against Texas and just dominated them 28-7. They were also able to defeat Arizona State, not Arizona State, Oregon. And that was just pretty much another, 28-7, I believe.
Yeah, it was a rout.
I mean, one common trend that I'm noticing is that Indiana is only giving up 7 points in a game. If they're not trying to go for a shutout, they're probably going to try to keep it so far away that any measure of a possible upset is really beyond reach. So my question to you, that other guy, is what did Indiana do to make it to this championship game? What makes Indiana such a phenomenal team in this tournament?
Oh, it's simple. Domination. Dominant. Powering. Commanding. Confidence. All these buzzwords paired in comparison to describe why Indiana. And mind you, this is a team this is not their first rodeo.
No, it's not.
This is their second time coming
They
here.
have won a national championship.
They are the only team to now come back twice, and they can make history. They can win. They can become a dynasty.
And let's not forget, I think the first time that Indiana made it to a national championship, they weren't coming in undefeated. I believe they had like a couple of losses under their belt. They probably have only won 3 games.
But they were still the overall favorites over UCF.
Yeah, and I think that the UCF game also acknowledged another common trait, which is the mid-majors going up against the big powerhouse programs. And, you want to give respect to Indiana because when you think of the Big Ten and powerhouse, you don't really initially think of Indiana. I think that Indiana winning the first national championship was an anomaly to the entire tournament in terms of what you thought a stellar program from a power conference may look like. But we're looking at a totally different Indiana team. We're looking at an Indiana team that is as ruthless in this tournament as they are in real life. I mean, they're not just trying to play to win. They're trying to maximize every single play that they can execute throughout this tournament. I think Mendoza is a very interesting character because when I look at Mendoza, there could be moments where he's looking like a genius, and then there's moments where he's throwing into double, triple coverage and playing like a gunslinger and really taking risks that aren't necessarily needed coming from a team like Indiana. And I think the saving grace is also the running game. I think Hemby is arguably, if not number 3, maybe number 2, or if not the best, running back in the tournament. Yeah, you say Donaldson. Yeah, you say Gilliam. But I also think that, you got to put Hemby on the list. And then you also have really the differentiation, the difference maker between Indiana and Fresno State, and that's their wide receivers. Right. From Sebret, outstanding wide receiver. I mean, the way that he's working the corners throughout some of these catches that we've seen throughout the tournament has been spot on amazing. Their tight end can actually do some work. And, the athleticism of the tight end, you can just tell that he's just built to get yards for the team. So I feel like with the opportunities that Indiana has, both in the air, Cooper Jr., I didn't even mention him. Like, there are so many opportunities for Mendoza to try to take advantage of a dynamic team on the offense, and they barely let teams get any points. I don't know. It begs this question, and this is the question that we've been waiting to ask for the past 2+, maybe 3 months. We started since the end of September, and now the question becomes, who do you have winning this national championship game? And when you determine who you win, maybe give us an idea of what that score could possibly be.
I've been with this team up and down, thick and thin, wins and losses, embarrassing wins, embarrassing losses. I think the Silver story culminates, and I think Fresno State is going to do the impossible. I think it's going to be a back and forth game, and I think Fresno State comes on top 23-20.
Well, I mean, I definitely respect Fresno State. I also respect the decision that you're making it. I think that this is not going to be a blowout at all. I think if you're expecting this to be a one lopsided type of game, you're not watching the right championship game. This is not going to be a lopsided victory. But I am going to go for the team that has been the most consistently dominant throughout this tournament. We had to second guess certain, victories coming from Fresno State. I mean, again, Old Miss punching them in the mouth, but still allow 12 points. Ohio State giving up 21 points, even though you took down a giant. I think that, they are a phenomenal team, but that's not something I ever have to worry about with Indiana. I think Indiana has demonstrated, and sure, maybe their road to victory, making it to this point, wasn't the same as Fresno State. But you put a piece of meat out there, they're going to eat it. You put any competition out there, they're going to beat them. And that's all they've done. They've defeated every single team coming right at them. And I don't think this game is going to be any different. I think that this is going to be an interesting game. I'm picking Indiana to win the national championship. I believe the score is going to be, I would say 21-10. It's going to be a shootout, but I think that Indiana, for the first time of the tournament, is going to or at least in the playoffs, is going to give up more than 7 points. But do I think that this is going to be super close? I don't know. I think that Indiana's defense is going to hold down a red-hot Bulldogs of Fresno State.
Well, folks, we just gave you our predictions. We, on behalf of BVG Stores, we want to thank you guys for joining us on this journey with 21 teams throughout this last 90 days. It's been a thrill. We've seen some blowouts. We've seen some close games. We see some bad games. And we see some epic failures of epic proportion. But this is it. Stay tuned, because coming up soon is the national championship game. Fresno State, the underdog, against the perennial favorite, Indiana.
So enjoy the game, and we'll see you at our extra time.
See ya.